Hello, friends. I'll tell you a little story. Today, I was in the woods hiking, and I passed by a log of wood. It was all covered with snow. And I remembered it was the same log that I had passed by last fall. And I had seen a beautiful mushroom growing on it, chicken of the woods, with its bright yellow colors and orange colors. And it was unmistakably a chicken of the woods, which is a non-poisonous mushroom. And I was so tempted. Normally, I'm not fond of mushroom, but just to harvest it from the woods in its natural surroundings, it was just, the idea was just very fascinating to me. And I thought about it, mulled over it, and then I knew it was not a poisonous mushroom. So I took it home and went through all the instructions, compared with a lot of Google images and all those things. But finally, I ended up cooking it and eating it. I still didn't like it, but that's not the point. The point is the idea of taking it from the nature and consuming it. It was just that carnal instinct was really enjoyable. But the same log that had produced this beautiful chicken of the woods mushroom was just lying dormant right now under the winter snow. And there was no sign of life anywhere. The mushroom that I had picked up was obviously gone by now. And who knows what's going to happen the next time when I come in the late summer, late fall season, when maybe another chicken of the woods mushroom might be growing. We don't know. Maybe the one that was there before it disappeared, it probably gave out some spores, and these spores probably traveled with the wind and settled in one of the logs, and probably it will start its own journey. The life will pitch in, the life will start taking roots in it, and a lot of internal process will go on before it will become manifest, will be visible to us as. And maybe this year, if I go for the hike in the wood, on those woods, maybe I find the similar mushroom, and maybe the same spot, maybe a different spot. Everything is unpredictable. So it made me think about it. It takes almost a whole year for the mushroom to grow. And all that process is totally unknown to us, from the spore that takes hold inside the dead log of wood, and then it multiplies and it starts flourishing and starts growing, and whatever it happens until actually it manifests outside, we don't know anything about it. Our eyes are only trained to see what it can see. So we see only the mushroom. We pass by, we say, okay, yeah, it's a beautiful mushroom. We take pictures, and some of us, like adventurous, we end up harvesting and bring it home and cook it and consume it and all those things. But the main point is all that process that actually created the mushroom remains totally out of bounds for us. We cannot see it. So it's a whole years of hard work that nature puts in to create one visible manifestation called the chicken of the woods mushroom. And not just the mushroom, I'm talking about all the elements of the jungle or everywhere. Anything you look around, even a tiny pebble or a rock, each one of them have their history. The trees have their history. The flower that we see, we smell the flower and they say, okay, I like this flower, I don't like this flower, we walk away. But we don't realize that years and years and years and millions of years of evolution has passed through before this flower could be created. But that's how we are. Whatever we can perceive with our eyes or ears or nose or touch or smell, that's all we know. And we are so occupied with that. We are so busy with our daily goals, daily desires, running and anxieties and stress and sufferings and complainings and more goals and more running, and all those things never gives us a chance to realize what goes behind making every single thing that's around us, even a blade of grass. So, so all these things, the mind is used to deal with the things which are known to it, or they may be unknown to it, but with enough efforts, it can know. So mind is only dealing with the known and the unknown. But there is a vast segment of the existence that is unknowable. In Sanskrit, it's called gyat. Gyat means known. Agyat means not known, but it can be known. And there is third thing is called agya. Agya is something that is beyond everything. So all these things we try to analyze, and all these things we get involved. We see a beautiful face and we get carried away, get mesmerized, and then all of us, and then we never pay attention to what is behind the face. What is the personality of the person? What are the thoughts? What are their characteristics and how they came about? All these things remains unknown to us. We see a colored person, we make a judgment. We see a handicapped person, we make a judgment. We see a poor person, homeless person, we make a judgment. All these things, just we look at everything on a face value. So that shows that we are living a very, very superficial life. The only way to really realize that there is something beyond is if you really start meditating and you go within. Even then you come across a lot of questions. You come across a lot of thoughts which are moving right and left. But do we ever try to find out, or do we have any answer where these thoughts come from? What medium these thoughts travel in? What will happen to these thoughts? What happens to them once they finish right in front of our inner eye and they disappear? Where do they go? There are a lot of questions, but we don't have answers. But there is no way we can get the answers. So there is a vast field of what we call agya, something that is not knowable. From the time that spore took the effect all the way to the manifested, the mushroom coming out, that process will never know. Because if you try to cut it open, and then the process stops. It's like a seed, you put it in the soil, and then you can't keep on checking it every single day. What will happen? What happened to it? What is the sprout coming out or not? No, you just have to wait till it starts manifesting outside the soil. So then it becomes perceptible to our eyes, our five senses. And this is all we know. So a lot of times we really think about it, you realize that there are so many questions that we don't have any answers for. A lot of things which are beyond the capacity of the mind. So sometimes we get frustrated. Most of the people get frustrated in meditation is because they try to apply their mind. No, the answer is the best thing that can happen to is when you realize that there are a lot of things that you don't know. I don't know. It is one of the beautiful platforms from which you can catapult yourself into the higher spiritual zone, because that's what the consciousness is looking for, absence of the mind. So you analyze yourself, you ask yourself a lot of questions, no problem, but you will come to a point that you will realize that there are a lot of questions you just cannot answer. That's when the mind becomes inadequate. we start realizing that our mind is very inadequate in solving all these problems. And then when you reach to a point where the mind realizes that it has reached to its limit, and there is no more reasoning, no more arguments, no more intellectual superiorizations. All these things we realize that has come to an end. In the world, we always compare ourselves with others. We compare our knowledge, our superiority, our inferiority, how much money we made, and all those comparisons are all calculated at the mind level. But when you come up with certain things where the mind becomes helpless, those are the situations which can become a major force on your spiritual path. So when the mind realizes that it has a limit, what happens? Then the mind surrenders. Mind realizes its own inadequacy. Mind realizes that it cannot solve everything. And when mind reaches its limit, the limitless enters into your psyche. The limitless is the consciousness, which is formless, which is beyond any reasoning, beyond any logic, beyond any calculations, beyond any so-called knowledge. So all these things disappear, and the limitless, the consciousness starts pouring in. And when that happens, it's a very moving experience, because that's when you get an experience of lying down like a lap in the lap of your mother. Mother's lap does not need appointments. Mother's lap does not need any formalities. You just drop yourself, give up all your egos, how big you may be a person in the society. You drop everything and you just lie down on mother's lap. And what do you get there? You get peace. You get tranquility. You get immense pleasure, immense quietness, and immense sense of unconditional love, which is the gift of mother to you. And that unconditional love showers you. And in that love, you get deeply saturated and you experience that state, which is one of the best experience of your life. What would you do? How can you compare the mother's lap with how many buildings you may be owning, how much big bank accounts you might have, how much this, how much that, how big a house, all those things? How can you compare? They can be compared with everybody else. Whatever you have, somebody else will have more, whatever it is. But mother's lap is a mother's lap. So the consciousness takes you in. Consciousness is waiting for it, for you to be empty. Right now, your mind is full. Our mind is always in a calculative mode. Our mind is directed outside, our achievements, more things to run after. And we are so busy, and anxieties and stress and depressions and grief and all those things have clouded our minds so much that we need the mind. We need to utilize it all the time. And when the mind is needed, the consciousness takes a step back. But there are situations, if you really look around, and all these situations arise, and if you really pay keen awareness to all these situations, and this comes after repetitive meditations, you start realizing the depth of what you're seeing beyond what you see, you know. So when this kind of depth starts coming in, what happens? You start realizing that every single thing around you has a very, very, very long history. Where did it come from? And it took lot of time. For mushroom, it was 1 year, but for the stone, it could be billions of years. Who knows? For the tree, it could be 100 years. But all those years, there is no way you can know what it went through. No way. So all these things were still managed to create a beautiful atmosphere around you, whether it's a cool breeze, whether it's the solar winds, whether it's the sun energy that's coming onto you. All those things that is happening, the beautiful lake could be in front of you, the birds may be chirping, but each one of the component that is surrounding you has tremendous history behind it. And there is no way to know. And because it's no way to know, what do you call that? It's agye. So agye is not knowable. Beyond your mind, when you leave your mind at the doorsteps, like if you enter into the temple, why do they tell you to take your shoes off? That represents your ego. You put your ego outside and you entering into the temple of consciousness. So that's where without ego, when you enter this agye, the field of agye, the unknowable surrounds you. It takes you in like a child. And in this mother's lap, as you know, everything is okay and nothing matters. Even if you don't know a lot of things, you are accepted, just like anybody who might know a lot of things. So those things don't matter. And the experience that you get, it's really literally out of the world experience. So in essence, if you realize and if you develop the depth in your meditation, you will realize that everything around you, whether it's the objects or people or situations, each one, even though we only see their superficial aspect, there is a lot of depth behind each and every component of the atmosphere around you. And that depth is the field of agye, which is the consciousness. So if you really think about it, the consciousness is in everything, indirectly, and everything is in the consciousness. That's what Krishna says, that whoever sees me in everything and everything in me is never far from me. So every single person that you come in contact with is a manifested form of the unmanifest consciousness. When this happens, your life becomes peaceful, tranquil, and filled with unconditional love for all. This is the message for today. This is the enigma of the mother's lap. Enigma is something that you could never figure it out, but you can experience it by the deep states of meditation and then applying it on a day-to-day basis. So much for today. Have a good day.